Besides sending the police, you might want to send an ambulance or a hearse.
Hello, Billy Ho here, coming at you. DraftKings show for the American Express 2023, La Quinta, California. I'm joined by the Hamburgini, aka the DFS chef, David. And how's it going this week for you, brother?
I'm doing good, ready to hit the California swing running. And we got, I think, the next 3 weeks in a row of course rotation.
Yeah. This is a fun time of the year, and I actually didn't I wasn't ready for it. And then I looked and I said, "Oh, that's right. We got three courses this week. I got to start get to cracking on these on the research thing." So I feel pretty good, man. The FYI, the contest is out, so make sure you're in there. And my preview video is out, and I go over all three courses and some showdown strategy, weather and whatnot, and all that stuff. So check that out on YouTube. Links are in the description to how to join the Discord contests. I got a free article on Google Sites now that I tout players and give course descriptions and previews and all kinds of good stuff. All the free information. So go check it out. And David and I are going to get into the DraftKings pricing and talk about some players. All right. We are on David's stat model. He updates this weekly with new information as we go, and it's only going to get better the more info we gather. This is right, like David said previously, we're hitting the West Coast swing. So now we're starting to get into weekly tournaments. So every week we're going to get another piece of the puzzle, and we're going to get into some golfers right now. We're going to go up top. I think with five golfers in the 10K range and half a dozen, well, 8 or 10. So we got we're gonna go 9K and up, and I'm gonna let David kick it off and give us some maybe some stats you're looking at, and start us off. Who you're going, how are you building, and let her rip.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're looking mainly at strokes gained approach this week, and each and every week, strokes gained approach is going to be extremely important. Um, as John Rahm calls us a putting contest. So obviously, we're going to be looking at strokes gained putting, and this year's a little bit different versus other years. They've kind of overseeded the greens this year with the Poa Travalis
Mm-hmm.
versus just straight Bermuda. So the greens are going to have a little bit different roll to it, and maybe a little different bump. It's not your typical California Poa, so I think it still will play a little bit more similar to like a true Bermuda. And with putting contests, obviously comes DK scoring or birdie or better, whichever you want to use. So you can see on my model, I'm very heavy on birdie or better, as well as the par five scoring, because I think that's where the majority of your scoring is going to come from. And that's obviously the case on almost any course with par five scoring. If you can't score on par fives, you're most likely not going to be up on the top of the leaderboard. So those are like the main things I'm looking at. Unlike last week, where 3 out of the 4 10K plus guys missed the cut, and I think the industry kind of felt that. I have a feeling, the industry was heavy on Tom Kim last week.
Oh
Sungjae,
yeah.
I could understand. I can understand Sungjae being a fade last week because if you look back at his course history at Sony, it really wasn't that great. So I can fully
Mm-hmm.
understand Sungjae fade, but Spieth going full Keegan on you
Oh God.
definitely costing people. So those people that had those
The
10K plus,
you're looking at the winner of the Billy Ho, maybe, likely, maybe. I don't know. Just say it. Go
if he
ahead.
makes the cut. Yeah, this week I don't think you're going to see that. Obviously, like we're talking about, we have course rotation, so you can almost treat this like a no cut tournament because the cut's not going to be made until after 54 holes. So each and every golfer is going to see 3 rounds unless they get DQ'd or WD. So you're going to see a lot of stars and scrubs builds. I'm quite sure this week. Um,
Oh yeah.
so going right up to the top, John Rahm is going to probably be the heavy favorite. And as I'm currently seeing, at least from very early projections, and I use Rick's site, Rahm is one of the highest owned projected golfers this week. And then we kind of come and almost even ownership with Cantlay and Scheffler. Um, Obviously, Scheffler is one of the best ball strikers in the field, but his putter's kind of been a little, off the last several tournaments. He did look like he started to get it back at the Century, so I can understand Scheffler, but Cantlay is the Cali boy, and I have a feeling Cantlay is probably going to pull the ownership on Scheffler once everything is said and done. And I think that when you talk about cash builds, I think you're going to see Cantlay as the guy you want to start your cash builds with this week. Um, and then Xander's going to probably be the question mark. Obviously, everyone in the industry sees that the MRI came back negative, but he is definitely someone that you probably are going to be very, cautious about clicking on his name this week, because anytime you deal with a back, and we know from years past with Jason Day how many times we clicked on his name and then he bent over to tie his shoelace and he wound up withdrawing. So you don't know that with Xander, and Xander could be right there as well. Like I mentioned last week, Sung Jae's course history at Sony, not great. But now we come to a tournament where he is just on the money. We talk the last 4 years, 11th, 12th, 10th, 12th. This course sets up way better for him than last week's course. So I want to see how many people can just put last week out of their mind and just click on his name. I mean, 9,800 is a little pricey. I'm currently seeing him, around 11% on Rick's site. So Zalatoris is coming in higher. Tom Kim's coming in higher. I actually prefer Sung Jae this week over Tom Kim, even though, obviously you can see on the model that Tom Kim grades out far better. But again, we're talking 2023 stats only. Some guys only have 6 rounds, where other guys are now up, close to 30 rounds. So you got to take the 2023 stats with a grain of salt, and you might want to go back a little bit further and do deeper dives with more rounds. So, Cam Young, I'm seeing also coming in high. A lot of people, I know that Tambo and Kenny said that he is, probably one of the most mispriced golfers in the field. They both felt that he should have been priced up higher, and his projected ownership is showing that, as he is at least currently the second highest projected guy in the field, right behind Rahm. So
that's high.
What they were talking about last night when I was watching their podcast, that they were wondering what his ownership was going to be. Well, I think the industry is in complete agreement saying that he is very mispriced. And if he's going to be that high priced, I can definitely see you going to him in cash, so you can go Cantlay Young and then go down from there, just like they were talking about last night. And you saw, what Kenny had as his cash game cornerstones, as he started it off very high with Cantlay, Zalatoris, and then Cam Young. So, I mean, that's probably going to be a lot of what you see in the industry for cash. And I play mainly GPP, so if Cam Young is going to be that highly priced, I have no issue going down a little bit to like Taylor Montgomery, who each and every week we just continue to talk about him. Once again, another top 15 finish last week. So I have no problem saving a little bit on Taylor Montgomery, or, I know I'm going down to the 8K range, but or saving money with Andrew Putnam, who's just been solid at this track as well. Or if we go to the 9K range, spending up a little bit to a guy that has just been on fire this entire fall swing and has very good course history here, ranking 4th in my model, Brian Harman. I have no problem going to Brian Harman if Cam Young's going to be that high ownership, when we talk Harman at like only, a little bit less than 8%. So, you're talking almost 3.5 times less ownership, at least as of right now. I have no problem clicking on Brian Harman and GPPs and fading Cam Young if he's going to be that high.
Gotcha. I'm pretty agreeable with you on the most of that, and I did actually. This is the first time I was really looking at the projected ownership, and I was pretty stunned about the Cam Young being that highly owned. Rahm and Scheffler, that's obvious. The first thing I was thinking of when you said stars and scrubs, I almost call this extreme stars and scrubs because people are going to try to really jam in two of these 5-digit players up here. Shoffley is Xander is obviously going to be the lowest owned, 12%. It depends. And then I just actually watched Tambo and Kenny Kim on their show, and Tambo mentioned a tweet he saw about the MRI being negative, which I'd already heard, but he said something about him going to give it a go. And I thought I would rather hear good to go, not give it a go. So I still don't know if I'm 100% sure. Game theory, I'm not playing him at 12 to 15%. If he was like 7 or 6, super low, I might consider it. Because Finau is, if Finau being in the ballpark, that's a no brainer. I'd play Finau over him. He's got, pretty decent course history here as well. Scheffler's got good course history. I kind of feel like John Rahm is going to be angry going into this tournament, as he colorfully said about the putting contest. And he won. You saw how he tore it up at TOC. That he could come in here and just say, I'm winning this tournament, because that putter was fire at TOC on the back nine coming home. So if he's got the putter rolling, he's a guy that I don't mind paying the freight on the 26%. But all these big dogs up here, and you'll see it in my article. I'm still working on it, so this is not what the finished product looks like. But these are the big dogs right here. I got the little big dog there, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, Cantlay is interesting to me because he's got probably the highest ranked Pete Dye rankings, and Sung Jae, actually his course history here is a lot better than I thought, and I didn't really know he went back 4 years. That's hard to believe he's been on tour that long. He seems so young. But the dude that I do really like is Willie Z, and I'm hoping that he can maintain. He might get steamed up as the week goes on, but I'm hoping he can maintain 15 or below ownership, as he showed me enough at the Tournament of Champions to trust him. And he did, because of his back injury, change his swing up a little bit to where it's not so twisty and violent. So he struggled a bit with the approach game at TOC, but the dude gains 4 to 5 strokes every week on off the tee, and he looked like he's worked a lot on the putter with the back injury. So sometimes he had a 6th place finish here last year. He stumbled out of the gate first round at, I think, La Quinta, shot like a 71 or something like that, which is not very good for La Quinta. And then he came back and absolutely torched the Nicklaus course. So I like him. Tom Kim, maybe go back to. It looks like the ownership's hanging in there. Sam Burns is really low owned, but I don't know what to think of Sam Burns right now with the form. He's really, really off the wall. He had a poor fall swing, and not so hot at the Tournament of Champions either. So I'm going to have to do a deeper dive into him and his course history. Of course, 2021 was the 2-day cut and a non-pro-am. So missing a cut there is, I'm going to forgive that a lot more. Brian Harmon, like you said, I agree. But I might just go, if you're going to give me 8% or sub 8% Siwoo Kim coming off the win, I might just go right back to him, because he won this in 2021 when it was, 3 rounds at the he loves Pete Dye. He's maybe the best. Him and Cantlay are probably the 2 of the best, but he's won players. He's won here. He knows Pete Dye courses. He knows strategy off the tee and placement. And if he's got the irons clicking like he did last week at Sony, he's tough, man. I said last week I wasn't on him at all, because I didn't like the Bermuda putting, but he figured it out and got it done. So Cam Young, obviously, I think is a value. So you're going to have to look to get different and on your ownership when you're building your lineups. But he's a guy that I think you can target in Showdown when he's on La Quinta and Nicklaus, because he'll tear those up. This guy he finished, you see the 40th here, and you're like, well, that's not all that. he was in the top 10 going into Sunday. He had a terrible 5-over. He had like a quad or a triple on a par 3. I think he took a 7 on a par 3 or a 7 on a par 4. Just spraying it all over the place. So if he can just clean up the mistakes on the stadium course, I think he'll be fine. He's got 2 100-point DraftKings outputs in the Hero and the Tournament of Champions. So the dude can flat out score. Aaron Wise, I don't think he's a good fit here. I'll let him beat me. He has been playing a lot better. So he is a different golfer. But if you want some leverage, you could take a chance on him. This is the guy, Taylor Montgomery, though. I'd like to see play this course. And Tambo said he's going to be on him this week by come hell or high water. He said he's tired of seeing him do the same thing every week. And the dude can flat out putt the rock, man. And this being a putting contest, he's a guy that I'll be interested to see how he handles it. And but he can rip it off the tee, and he's good. He can play. So it's not like he just goes out there and just kicks it around the golf course and then one putts every green. He's got a good all around game. Cam Davis, probably a little popular, but this is where I like him. I didn't like him last week at Sony because of only 2 par 5s. And I feel like the only reason he made the cut last week is because on Thursday he eagled both par 5s. So I said, he ain't doing that again. And he just kind of had a middling performance the rest of the way. And a 32nd place is all right for him. But he's got some pretty good history here too. Third place finish in 21. He is an excellent Pete Dye player as well. He's got good finishes at RBC and places like that. So I like him. Going back to Putnam, I almost have to. He came through for me in a big way last week. Helped me get there in a couple of lineups. 14th, 21st, 10th, 17th, 34, all good showings. He had poor iron play, poor ball striking. He's going to lose strokes on the tee anyway because he's such a short hitter. You see, he's 282, but he is decently accurate. He makes up for it on the greens. The off the tee game is all right, but the improvement he made over the weekend at Sony with the irons is what I focused in on. He was a negative, probably stroke and a half or so through the first 2 rounds. And then he got back to just a slight negative, and then he gained about a stroke and a half on Sunday. So I feel pretty good about him. People are touting Thigala this week. He's another guy I kind of put in the Cam Young bucket as huge upside, made mistakes, 3 over on Sunday last year here, was in the top 10 and sniffing it. So if he can clean up the stadium course mistakes, he's going to be a good play. I mean, all these guys in this 8K range, but I like the ownership. Hoagie, I was going to tout him a little bit. He's really hot fire with the approach. 10 strokes at the Tournament of Champions, plus 5 at Sony, makes birdies in bunches. He does struggle a little bit around the green, but I don't think that hurts him here. That dude hits a lot of 100-point DK weeks. He had I think I counted 5 over about an 8-month period of 100-point outings. So he is a dangerous guy, but that ownership is a bit pricey for me. KH Lee, I think, is coming to his own a little bit more this year. But the dude that I think might be low key because we haven't seen him is Adam Hadwin. He's got great course history here. Second and third, shot a 59, I think, on one of the off courses several years back. Everybody talks about that at least once a year. But I mean, he's a greens and regulation guy. He's accurate off the tee, not super long, but close, long enough. And he is a guy we haven't seen. I think a lot of people will shy away from some of these guys that haven't played since the fall, but this is typically his first event of the year for the most part. I think he played Sony a few years ago, but he typically starts off here. So getting down into the 8Ks, and I'm going to let Dave jump into the 7s here in just a second. I don't think I'll go Taylor Pendrith. JT Poston has been playing very well, but he was surprisingly popular last week in some of the contests I saw. So I'm unsure about that, but he's been really consistent. 21, 21. Well, 21 at TOC is not great, but 21 at Sony is pretty good. I, I'm still up in the air on him. Wyndham Clark is a guy that's a putter and a bomber. So he's a guy that I might be looking at some showdown plays on La Quinta and Nicholas. That'll be some strategy, and I might even have another video coming out this week on maybe some showdown strategy since it's so precise and you have so many different variables. You can be contrarian and play stadium course guys, or you can hammer on the La Quinta guys where that's the easiest course. Nicholas, that much. First round leader bets can do that too. So let's get on down here into the 7K range, and I'll let you lead us into the 7Ks, and then I'll bounce back to me, and I'll do my 7Ks, and then I'll go back to you, and you hit us with the sub 7K guys.
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Dave.
I'll just rattle off a couple names real quick in the 7K range. Justin Rose, definitely more GPP, but he seems to like this course. Um, so I'm looking at Justin Rose as possible GPP, maybe just a couple shares. We talked putting contest. We talked Danny McCarthy. Obviously, Danny McCarthy probably safer in cash. If you're looking at someone for cash over Justin Rose, I would definitely go Denny because we know he's probably the best putter in the field. Someone that has length, but also a good putter, Patrick Rogers, and over the fall swing, he's been looking really good. Uh,
Yeah.
Joel Damon showing pretty high projected ownership, but he has withdrawn. So Hank Lebioda is taking his place.
Oh, Big Bank Hank.
So those people that have 11% projected ownership, at least from what Rick's showing, better be pivoting off of Joel Damon now. We look at that I'm looking at as well. I didn't play him last week, even though he typically does well in Hawaii. I usually always wait for him to hit the Cali swing, and that's Brendan Steele. Even though he missed the cut here last year, I do think Brendan Steele's someone I might be looking at, considering that he looked pretty good last week. The finish wasn't great, but like I said, I like him more in California. Ball striking, Will Gordon always comes into play. He seems to have found his game from his time on the Corn Ferry Tour. David Lipsky, another guy that I'll be looking at after a very strong finish last week, and then having that I think it was a T14 here last year, so he's rolling in on some hot form. Also coming in on good course history here. Ben Griffin continues to roll the rock, looking really good. So Ben Griffin's someone I'll be looking at this week. A couple of weeks ago, I said that Luke List cost me placing in our contest, and I'll always let that be the case. I will live and die by Luke List. If anyone beats me with Luke List, so be it. I'm looking more at Grayson Sigg. Grayson Sigg I had in my core last week. Didn't finish all that great, but he's continuously making cuts at least. So Sig is someone I'm looking at. He seems pretty safe, especially for like a low 7K cash guy. I'm considering Sig. Ben Taylor, real strong last week, very strong fall swing. He has played here twice, missed the cut both times, so something to be a little cautious about. And also at the 7K flat guy, Nick Taylor, someone I'll probably be looking at this week. So both Ben Taylor and Nick Taylor, two guys I'll be looking at, probably leaning a little more Nick Taylor than I would Ben Taylor, just because of Nick Taylor's course history here.
All right, cool. You mentioned to me moving over here back to Rick's thing, the ownership on Joel Damon, and I thought, damn, because there's a guy right here next to him that I think is quite the interesting play, and that's Thomas Dietrich. So he's probably going to suck up some of Damon's ownership just because it's the same price. Harris English is a guy who has he made the cut last week, but he had a pretty decent fall. I think he's might be finally getting through the that hip injury, but he's still kind of hit and miss. He's a guy I used to love to target. I like your Patrick Rogers call. He excellent fall swing, and that guy's pretty decent on pretty decent Pete Dye record as well. Um, Jason Day, Pete Dye, he's on the top 10 list of the Pete Dyes, and he had a pretty good fall swing as well. So I am one of the guys that don't play him, and like you said, he can just beat me, and I may let that be the case because he just seems like he should be so much better than he is these days because he is he's but because his short game is not as good as it used to be in my opinion. You can see .08 around the green and minus .24 putting. That should be his strong suit. So that's what bothers me about him. Rose is kind of another fickle play, but I like that .02. This is something I've been looking at on Rick's site. This right here is called fantasy points gained. And that's what I want to start looking for when I get down here. And that's what I saw in Dietrich, 2.37 fantasy points gained. He's 314 distance off the tee, but he's a wild man. That's why I call him a wild card in my article. He's actually also an excellent putter. He had a pretty good fall swing, second and 15th. He's never played here, but I don't think that matters at all. I think he can get out there and just grip it and rip it on the two off courses and do some scoring for you. And hopefully he can dial it back enough. The one thing you did mention, and it just made me think of it with the overseeding on the greens and whatnot. And shout out to GS Luke. He's another guy that does shows. He pointed out to me on his show that unseasonably cold in California. And I noticed it's about in the 30s at night. It's going to be cold in the AM, barely 48, 50 degrees when they tee off Thursday, Friday. It will warm up in the afternoon to the mid 60s by the weekend, but I didn't see any rain and not a lot of wind. But what that does is that keeps that Bermuda dormant. So what you're going to see is all the rough. You're going to see nothing but brown. It's going to be brown, spindly little grass. It's not going to be like that thick shit that you get in Florida where you can't even hack the ball out on some of them. It's going to be not difficult to play out of the rough, so guys can get a little loose on the drives. But there is trouble if you're not careful, especially on Nicklaus course. I know I heard a couple quotes from some guys saying that if you're not on your game and paying attention to what you're doing, you can get in real trouble on the par fives on the Nicklaus course. Alex Smalley, that seems like a pretty pricey for a guy that's, I could find Alex Smalley's in the 6K range, and honestly, but he had some top 10s and top 15s in the fall, so you never know. He might be ready to spike. Brendan Todd, we both touted a little bit last week, and he played pretty well. Not the finish I wanted for him, but he did pretty good. Chris Kirk was off the chains last week, but he's a hit and miss guy. If he gets the putter going, he can do all right. These guys in here, Steele, I played last week, and he did make the cut, but he was, like you said, not exactly what you wanted from him. Lee Hodges was a guy that won me some money last year. He came in about 6,400 last year and had a third place finish. I saw something in him last year, and he was in one of my lineups, so I was digging him. But 7,400, that's a bit pricey. That's a bit of a bump for Lee Hodges, although he has shown some upside. Will Gordon, I agreed with you on. I thought he's really come into his own as well. All these guys are going to have solid ownership, as far as being low owned, so you can not worry about playing them. Like Steele, if he's going to be 1 or 2%, I like that. Taylor Moore is a guy we haven't seen. He didn't finish his fall swing very well, but he had a pretty good late summer. I'm not sure I'll get to him, but Ben Griffin, he's in my article, picked up right where he left off at Sony with a T12 +4 with the ball striking. The putter is hit and miss, but it's a spike putter, and that's what a lot of GPP players like. He can gain up to 2 to 3 strokes in a single round, which will make him an excellent showdown player as well. Callum Tarrant, I'm hearing a little chatter on, and if he's sub 5%, I'm going to give him a good hard look. He can rip it off the tee, and he's good around the green. He's got a look positive putting. He's another guy that fantasy points gained is pretty decent. You can see Ben Griffin's fantasy points gain is up there. I'm going to pass on Johnny Vegas. I want to see a little bit from him. He is a guy I like to play though. Uh, Party Marty, Benny On. Benny On came out of nowhere last week. He had a T8 here in 2021, didn't play last year. He's a guy that got his tour card back, refocused on his game. So he's a better player than he was. Around the green, he's always been fantastic. And if you see that, almost even putting is insane for him. So that's a dude that you might want to give a look to at sub 5K ownership too. All these guys, Matthew Neesmith, he made my list of Pete Dye players. I'm going to have some interest in him. Nate Lashley got back on the board. Our shout out to our boy Anzo. For he used to love to play him some Nate Lashley, and so he performed very well last week. Now, once we start getting into the 6K, I like the Ben Taylor, the Mark Hubbard. He hasn't been very good. I thought he would make the cut last week, and he didn't. Nick Taylor is a dude I loved at Pebble a couple years ago, and he won it. So he is a guy that can take advantage of these courses. Some of these dudes just have more patience than others. So, I like him. The Carl Ewans and the Kevin Hughes, it's going to take a little bit more for me to see them. This is a stronger field than Sony, but they both look pretty good. I was actually looking hard at you and last week and just couldn't pull the trigger on him. But he's +2 in the fantasy points gained, so I may look at him. Now, this is what I wanted to get into as we're coming up toward the end, and I'll kick it over to you, Dave, in just a second. Is 6K guys. I'm not trying to go down here and find some 6K flat bottom, a Duffner. That's hilarious. But what I'm saying, 60. But Kevin Tway, actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But somebody like I said, it's long shots win this golf tournament. Hudson Swafford won it last year. He was 6,700. And Lee Hodges was 6,400. He was close. Landry back in 2020 won it at 6,500. So those are established players and have had some history. Of course, we're not seeing Swafford because he went to live, but that puts me right in this mid 65 to 6,800 range. And there's all kinds of guys in here. Adam Shank is interesting. I had a few guys written down. Sam Ryder, I haven't pulled the trigger on him yet. I hesitated last week. I think he's a guy that can score. Both of these guys right here, Justin Lower and Sam Ryder, both 6,800. They're both positive in fantasy points gained. That's what I'm going to look at down here is fantasy points gained. Aaron Badley comes out of nowhere sometimes. I'll just let him have his occasional top 10. He's fine. I do like him as a golfer, but see guys like -9 Harry Halls and -2 Schmid, guys like that. Armour killed me last week. Anybody that makes a hole in one and misses the cut just really pisses me off. But anyway, I digress. But you get down in here and you start looking for guys that are any kind of positive in fantasy points, even a half. Tyler Duncan, T Dunks, but he hasn't made a cut since Nam. So I don't know what to think about him. But I'll be looking at this mid to upper K range, like I said, the Adam Shanks of the world, the Bryce Garnetts, dudes that can score, and with having 3 rounds, you want as much upside as you can. So even if they miss the cut, you're only hamstringing yourself for 18 holes. All right, take us home, Dave.
Yeah, real quick, 6K guys that I'm going to be looking at. Bramlett, like you mentioned, DK points gained, he's positive. Aaron Badley, someone I'll be looking at in the sub 7K range. Ben Martin, even though he's showing negative DK points, he's good here. He's made the cut every time he's played here. good finish. So Ben Martin, someone I'm going to be looking at. And then we get down to Tyson Alexander. That's another guy that I'll be looking at 6,400. Tyson Alexander, good fall swing, hasn't played here, but good putter, good around the green. It's his ball striking that you got to worry about. So, and we talk putting contest. So Tyson Alexander will be someone I take a shot at, and then maybe even Eric Cole at 6,300, another guy that is your short game kind of specialist at sub 7K, but he's positive DK points over his last 36 rounds. So those are probably some of the names I'll be looking at sub 7K.
All right. Excellent, man. I appreciate that. I guess we'll go ahead and call it a day there. I think we got more than enough info out to the people. So appreciate you watching. But I will just say one more thing on strategy is I think I'm going to buck the system a little bit and not go so much. I'm going to go balanced in scrubs, maybe some. And because there's so many good 9K golfers. But I will have somebody up top like Rahm, definitely. Scheffler, definitely. Finau, definitely. So I'm going to mix and match those upper guys because they have all the win equity. But just guys looking to score because like down low, like they touted Eric Cole last week and he made the cut, but he finished like 70th or something like that. So I don't know what kind of upside. Like I said, you're guaranteed 3 rounds. So I don't know. Making the cut is not as important as a regular field event here. You want as many points as you could possibly get your hands on. So for David, DDFS Chef on Twitter, hit him up if you want a stat model. He'll set you up with a real cheap deal. And this is Billy Ho. Follow me on Twitter at Billy Ho Sports. Check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe and smash that like button. Until the next time, we will see you soon. Thanks for watching.